All right, jumping right into it. Say the Semantics, episode 225. It is September 4th, 2023. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on for a bit about some shit. Early in the week episode, or segment of the episode, I mentioned that I was probably just going to do a one-off this next week, but I was able to find the time to record something. One, today is Labor Day, but I happen to be working today, so couldn't really call it a holiday. Couldn't claim it as a holiday. So I said, "Fuck it, man. I'm gonna try to find the time to actually do something that doesn't, I'm gonna try to enjoy the holiday by recording an episode." if that's what it means to celebrate something, but yeah, I found the time to record, so I decided to do that. It's Monday, so not a whole lot has happened between Saturday when I last recorded and today, but there are some things that I wanted to kind of catch up on from kind of the past few weeks regarding like gaming news and shit like that, because there's actually been quite a lot going on, contrary to what I said last time in regards to like not a whole lot happening, but no, a lot's been going on in the world of gaming, and I kind of wanted to touch a little bit on that kind of subject, just so I don't know. I just think it'd be interesting to sort of discuss that, talk about that. Most of it is in regards to games that I will not play and I have not touched, and it's possible that I might never play those games, but I think it'll be interesting to kind of look at it in sort of, within the whole of like the gaming landscape and how that affects things. Because there's been a lot of, it seems, based on what I've kind of observed, there's been a lot of good games that have come out pretty recently and this year in particular. And I think that, I think that's really great. I think that's awesome that there's so much good stuff out there for people to play. Two, it's unfortunate that I personally don't have the time. Really, it's really comes down to the time to play these games. And as I've talked about before, like I just can't justify having, just considering the amount of time that I put towards gaming. Like I just can't justify buying like another console, like home console, like a PS5 or a Xbox. You know what I mean? There's just not enough. I don't know. It's just too little time for me to warrant buying me an extra console. So, maybe again, this is just a thing that's in the potential future. Maybe I'll buy myself another console so I can have another system to game on, so I have more games to game if I ever find the time. But it is what it is. I'm not super. It's not something that I'm super bothered by. Of course, I do feel some elements of FOMO, like I kind of discussed previously, but it happens, and you just kind of have to deal with it. One of the games that I talked about somewhat briefly was Baldur's Gate 3, which has received a really positive reception from like pretty much everybody. I did hear. I did not expect kind of how successful this game was going to be, because I remember, this was a while back, I was looking up games that, like potential RPGs that I could kind of get into, that are on the Switch, just sort of outside of like the typical, JRPGs that I'm accustomed to, and Baldur's Gate 2 popped up. So I believe a port of that is available on the Switch. So if, it's not something that I'm super interested in at the moment, but if there comes a time where, who knows if this is actually going to happen in the near future by any means, but if I do somehow run out of games that I want to play, then that's something that I could add to the list, Baldur's Gate. Maybe I could pick that up if it goes on sale or whatever, or if I really have an interest in playing it, check it out, see if I kind of get the flavor of that style of, I guess it's considered like a CRPG, right? So what would it be? Kind of similar to like what was it? What's the acronym stand for? Countertop RPG, akin to like D&D and that sort of thing. So I've heard that people who enjoy D&D will also really enjoy this game as well. So that's that seems really interesting. I've never played something like that before. I don't know. I've seen some footage of the game, but I genuinely don't really know how it functions. It seems like it's like turn based, which is right up my alley. So yeah, maybe it's something that I could be interested in. But if there is the kind of that inkling of me wanting to play the game, I'm not going to pick up 3 anytime soon because, one, I don't have a PC, I don't have a PS5. They're going to do a release on the home consoles later on. But if I do have an inkling, or if I'm somewhat interested, then it's possible that I might pick up the second one, which is a lot older. But it could be something that could satiate that sort of want to kind of delve into that style of games. So that's something that could be a potential thing in the future. I don't know yet, but I was just sort of thinking about that because of how highly positive the reception is Baldur's Gate 3 has gotten. It really felt like it kind of came out of nowhere. It is a name that I've heard before, but it's just not something that I thought was going to have such a popular kind of, or just increase in popularity. It was not something that I expected. It seems like it sort of like came out of nowhere to be a potential, Game Awards winner. It doesn't really matter to me too much whether, I don't really care too much which games win or whatever. If Zelda wins, cool. If it doesn't win, it is what it is. I'm not gonna be super upset by that. It's still like these games are gonna win awards regardless, just with different publications. You know what I mean? Like, I know people have started to put a lot of weight and emphasis on the Game Awards in particular, just because it's the most popular, and it's starting to become a little bit more recognized kind of in the industry space. But I don't think it's going to be, it's just another awards show, you know what I mean? It's similar to kind of the Oscars in that sense. It is like a large advertisement in that sense too. So I don't know. It's fun to view and it's fun to enjoy and be like a spectator for, but I don't put a lot of weight into that kind of the awards and who wins the awards and all of that. So it is what it is. If they win, they win. If they don't, they don't. It's not huge, not a big deal. But yeah, that's sort of how how I kind of feel about again, it would be cool to see Zelda win. I mean, it's hard for me to say like it's my game of the year because it's really one of the few games that I've played, and the other games that I've played are like older games. You know what I mean? So it's a little I can't, just in terms of the games that I've played in general, it would be kind of my game of the year, but whatever. So other big games that have been released was Starfield was released. That's not something that I'm particularly interested in. I've never really delved into any Bethesda games before. Like, I've played it offhand or like just kind of occasionally on like other friends' consoles. Like, I've played a tiny bit of Skyrim. I was terrible at it. I was just like running around trying to like break into people's houses and screwing up the lock picking mechanic. Very, very briefly kind of touched like Fallout. I remember like watching a friend play New Vegas like a little bit, but other than that, I don't have a whole lot of hands-on experience with the Bethesda games. So it seems to have gotten a pretty good reception. I've watched and listened to some pretty critical reviews of the game, but a lot of the reviews were in regards to kind of the performance, which is something that Bethesda games have seemingly dealt with in the past. But it's other than that, people are saying it's like a fun time, and it seems like there's like a ton of shit that you can really do in the game. So that's pretty exciting. Again, I don't think it's really something that I'm gonna play anytime soon or really ever, but I think it's cool that this type of game has really come up. There's just so much stuff out there to really delve into, so many different types of games. Like, sure, they all fall under kind of the not JRPG, RPG moniker, or genre in that sense, but there's just so many. They're all so different. Like the ones that are like massive are like so different that there's just so much variety out there for people to kind of pick up and play. So I think that really gives players a lot of availability in terms of what they can play. Of course, the issue kind of comes with sort of the cross-platform stuff. Like, majority of these games, Starfield is exclusive to Xbox. Zelda is obviously exclusive to the Switch. Final Fantasy is exclusive to the PS5. So there's you kind of have that sort of I guess sort of that I guess that could be like a bit of an accessibility issue for sure, even for myself. Like, it's just not something that, like, I don't know. It would be nice if everything was available on one console, but that's just not how the market works, right? So I don't, there's only so much I can really do in terms of that. But I don't know. I think it's just cool that there's a lot of interesting and different games out there that are pretty relatively high quality, and that's cool. That's exciting. It's cool that there's a lot of discussions and a lot of different just sort of I don't know, there's just a lot of interesting conversations that kind of revolve around games and stuff, and I think that's great to kind of see. I think that's great to great that those things are available. But yeah, Starfield is the big one that just recently came out. Baldur's Gate. What else? Super Mario Wonder, Super Mario Brothers Wonder is going to be coming out. I did talk about that briefly, or I touched upon that when they announced the game back in June, and also they had the direct recently for that. Did I talk about that? Maybe I didn't, because that was a pretty recent thing. But they had the direct for that. I watched it. It seems fun. Again, 2D platformers are not really my thing. Again, there's just some exceptions to that, like Hollow Knight and Celeste, but those are really, I don't know what it is about platformers that I just haven't really latched onto, but it has to be really specific in terms of what I want, and just sort of what I can kind of get out of it. So yeah, I mean, there's just certain things about Hollow Knight, the vibe, the music, the just the gameplay that really drew me in, the exploration. I think that was kind of huge. So if there's another game that sort of fits in that kind of wheelhouse of games, that would be kind of cool to pick up. But until then, I'm really just waiting for Silk Song, whenever the hell that comes out. We're still waiting on it. They've announced it, but then they've sort of like backtracked their statements, and they're like, "Hey, listen, we're still kind of working on it, so we can't give a guaranteed release date yet, because we're still working on that." Which I think is kind of it's funny, but also a little frustrating. But that's just sort of the nature of game development. So yeah, just platforms are not super. I just don't think I've given them a fair chance. Maybe it's not my thing. I don't know if I can really force myself to play these games, but I enjoyed Celeste. Celeste is a straight platformer. It's the most like pure type of platformer you can honestly really get, but I just haven't. I don't know. I just haven't played the classics. I did start playing. I do have Nintendo Switch Online, so I played Donkey Kong Country very, very briefly, and I played like the first two levels, and I had fun with that, but I just haven't given it I just haven't played enough of it to really, you know, give it a fair sort of chance in that sense. So, um, I think that, yeah, I don't know. I think platformers and me have a bit of a ways to go. I think I just need to delve into some more um, before I really give it a shot. Or before I really, you know, want to commit to making more purchases. So, yeah, Super Mario Brothers Wonder. It seems fun. It seems really fun. It seems really colorful. But I just it's not persuaded me, and you know, it hasn't really changed my opinion on how I feel about platformers. It seems there's some variations, and it seems really cool. Switching up the formula a little bit, like adding some cool new features and accessibility options for players that want to, you know, have a bit more of an easier time, which is cool. I think that's great, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if if it's something for me in particular, but hopefully it has a good reception, and hopefully the game is good when it comes out, and people are able to enjoy it. I think the online thing is interesting. Basically, how it is you're not able to interact directly with any players, but you're able to sort of play. You can quote unquote play together in sort of like a passive mode, um, where you can like potentially race your other players. So that could be cool. That could be like a fun feature, fun multiplayer thing. I'm sure players can, you know, make something out of that. But yeah, I don't know. It's just it's not something that I am vying for. Um, but yeah, it's cool that that is coming out. We're still sort of waiting on a actual September direct from Nintendo, so I'm gonna be keeping an eye out for that. I'm really interested. This is like the one where I'm really interested in what they're going to present, um, because because of like the Switch 2 rumors and everything like that. And it seems like outside of Mario, there's just not a ton on their slate going into the next year. So it could be really interesting seeing what they come out with this September, if they have a direct. I feel like they're going to. I have a bit of a hunch that they're going to have a direct. Maybe it's going to be sort of a soft one, like maybe just sort of like a easy one, nothing too crazy. But I'm sort of anticipating that still. Anyways, yeah, just a quick kind of follow up on some, you know, recent gaming news and sort of the gaming world. There's been some stuff going on, and I just sort of wanted to catch up on that. And I also wanted to record something for today because I had the time to, and I want to enjoy myself in some way, in some capacity. Because I am working on a Labor Day, and I feel like I should give myself a little something, give a little treat, you know? So I decided to record something. Anyways, that's probably going to be it for now. I'm going to do a second part of this episode later this weekend. I'm going to try to do it this weekend. And hopefully by the time I record that, I will have started Nier Automata, and I'll have something to talk about for that game, because I'm really interested in getting into that this week if I have the time. Hopefully, fingers crossed, all that. So yeah, that's it for now, and I will check back in later this upcoming weekend. All right, it is now September 8th, 2023. Recording this on a Friday because I want to record this a little earlier. Gonna be a bit busy this weekend, catching up with some work. Gonna try to get as much of that stuff out of the way as I can. But yeah, just wanted to kind of do a bit of an early recording today. Because I felt like it, okay? I felt like it. Do I need to give a reason for it? It's not that big of a deal. But yeah, it's been a busy week. I'm a little tired, if you can't tell by my voice, but I'm a little tired for sure. It's been yeah, this week's been just sort of like it's been kind of a blur. It was definitely one of those weeks where on Wednesday I was like, "Fuck, it's only Wednesday." You know what I mean? I hate the feeling. This is such a really specific type of feeling, but I hate the feeling when I want the day to go by fast. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, I can't wait for the weekend. That sort of kind of general sort of outlook on things. I don't think that's like a great way of going about, your week to week. Obviously, that's obviously it's a very, you know, just a general kind of overview of that for sure. But still, man, like I think that I really try to avoid looking at it from that point of view because I just feel there's you got to take it day by day. Of course, it's much easier to just be like, oh, I'm looking forward to this thing, or looking forward to the weekend, so I don't have to work. Um, and it sucks that many people it's just how things go, and that's just how people feel. That's sort of a I don't know. I don't have a statement to make about that, but if I can, if I'm able to, I want to avoid feeling like, oh, let's move on to the next thing. Oh, let's move on to the next thing. Oh, let's just wait until the next event that comes around. You know what I mean? Because then it's like your whole life is gonna pass by, and you're not even gonna remember. Yeah, it's just gonna be all a blur, which is like fine. Like some people, I can't tell people how to live their lives, but it's just not something how it's not how I want to necessarily live. I don't think there's anything wrong. There's absolutely nothing wrong with going from, looking forward to the next vacation or the next trip that I'm taking. There's nothing wrong with any of that, for sure. But I want to avoid having to use that as sort of a crutch to motivate me to keep, going through each day or each week, or, using the weekend as sort of a crutch to get through the week. And I'm like, that's like it's at least 5 days where you're just like getting through it. I'm like, yeah, that's hardly living. And I know that's much more, much more of a commentary of just work, work in general for sure. There's much more, much more of a discussion to be had there. I'm just a guy, you know, so I want to be able to control the things that are within sort of my sphere or within my grasp of things that I can control. And if I'm able to, I want to be able to approach things on a daily basis. As shitty as I might feel. Like this morning, honestly, the last couple of days, I've just been kind of bleary-eyed. I've slept like shit. But I've got, I try to take it, as as sort of consistently as I can in terms of, a day-by-day process or agenda or whatnot. You know what I mean? Like, I really try to make the most out of it, even if it is a kind of a crappy day. I have my moments where I may, like, screw up a bit on a task or a job or whatever. But I really just want to do my best to enjoy kind of everything. It really is just sort of like, I'm really trying to embody the living in the present kind of thing, not to like an obnoxious degree, but as best as I can, I don't want to just like impose that on other people either, because that's not fair. But if I'm able to, I would like to try to do that. So even if a day is kind of crappy, I'm able to take what I can from it. If like the specific hour is crappy, like I'm able to kind of take what I can from it. So yeah, I don't know. That's sort of what I've just been thinking of it. Other than that, like, I've been busy for sure. I'm a little tired. I slept kind of like shit. My sleep hygiene's been kind of ass. Just kind of, that's just how it goes. Of course I can improve on that. I can always improve on that. But, yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. I feel decent at the moment. despite it being the end of the weekend and me having to have more shit to kind of work through, I actually feel okay. Because one of the reasons is because I actually do have something to kind of look forward to pretty soon. I started up Nier. Um, do I want to talk about Nier first, or do I want to talk about like gaming, general gaming news first? I'm trying to think. What do I have more to say on, or what do I want to talk about first? Let's talk about Nier. So, I started it up on either Tuesday or Wednesday. I played for an hour, about an hour. It was like 10 a.m. It was like 10 p.m. It was at night. So like, I'd gotten off work around like 9 something, and then I booted it up because I really wanted to get into it. Played for like an hour. I was I was playing it just, I was kind of like in a daze, you know, because I was just pretty like, you know, I was pretty just kind of, you know, pretty done after a long day. So I wasn't really super focused, but I really wanted to play it. I really wanted to, you know, at least get a start on it. So I did. I played like an hour. I didn't even like I feel like I didn't even really register what was going on for the most part. Because it was just like, it was such a unique experience that just within that first like hour of playing the game, I got so much out of it. It's kind of crazy. I've never played a game like this where there's just so much shit going on, and it just sort of happens. It just happens seamlessly. I really wish I could reiterate kind of perfectly what I thought of the next like morning, because when I was like thinking about it, like after I played it, I was like, oh, that was pretty fucking cool. But I just feel like I didn't really register or appreciate the full extent of how well executed everything was within just that 1 hour of gameplay. Like it was just like a seamless sort of just sort of, I guess, what would I call it? Like really just like a seamless kind of like experience going through it. It was kind of crazy. To give, I'll most likely just mark this with spoilers just in case. I'm not going to get too heavy into the story. Well, I'm not even into the story yet. You know what I mean? I just played the game. I have an idea. I have some expectations for sure on how things are going to evolve, but I can't really say that much in terms of like, you know, how things are going to develop. But I died once, and based on that, I already got an inclination of what the story might kind of revolve around. You also get that kind of impression based on what the main character says in like the very first scene, what she says in kind of her opening monologue. And you're like, okay, so this is sort of like a, you know, there's definitely this psychological, philosophical element that's going on, which has me really interested. And I already kind of get a similar idea and theme of, you know, this, you know, importance of life and death and concept of Ouroboros, Xenoblade, Xeno shit, a little bit. I'm feeling a little bit of that for sure. But in terms of the gameplay, so it's crazy. Like it's honestly like crazy how they did this. I don't know if other parts of the game are gonna be similar to this like kind of opening style, or if it's going to more focus on one gameplay style. But really, what it was like, it started off as like kind of like a bullet hell segment, and then it went into like a third person action, you know, third person action hack and slash. Then it goes down to like a top down like shooter plus, action game. Then it goes to a sort of like a hallway like Metroid style hallway platformer type of thing. And then it transitions into like a mech battle. It's crazy, dude. They did all of that just in 1 hour. It was like wild. It was just like boom, 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 and they kept switching angles, like different. Every frame they like were switching like the camera angle, which then represented a different gameplay style. And the crazy thing is, the control scheme didn't change at all during any of this. There's like no, there's the tutorials in this game are essentially just like commands. You can customize your controls at the very beginning of the game, which I did. And then while you're playing through the game, it gives you just sort of, it lets you know what button inputs you should be pressing and how you should execute them. It's sort of in this sort of mini tutorialized section of the game. But once you get a handle on that, every button, every action you take is the same regardless of the format of the game. Like whether it goes from this like bullet hell section where you're in the mech, like shooting other sort of planes down, I guess you could say, then it kind of transition into over the top, third person hack and slash, sort of, more typical action game, Bayonetta, Devil May Cry, sort of in that, vein. And then it goes into sort of like a platformer thing where you're seeing it from, the side, right? And you're fighting enemies that are coming at you from the side. And then like later on it goes into back into like a mech battle thing where you're fighting another like machine mech thing. You know what I mean? Crazy shit, dude. Crazy shit. I didn't, yeah, I really didn't appreciate that when I first played it because it was late. I just was not registering any of it. I was just having kind of fun playing through it and struggling with it because I'm kind of ass at the combat, but I was still having fun. So I'm excited to kind of dive back into that tonight. I'm definitely gonna boot it up tonight. But it's been a really cool. It was a great introduction to the game. I just got a lot out of it. Again, I'm curious to see how they're going to continue this. Is it going to continue to be this style where they continue to change up essentially the gameplay format and really the camera sort of, positioning? Like, is that something that they're going to continue doing throughout the game, or was this just sort of, part of the introductory section? Like, even if it is just part of this introduction, I thought it was incredibly well executed. I wouldn't be disappointed if they decided to hone in or focus in on, maybe just like the third person hack and slash aspect of it. But just the fact that they did all of that is really impressive. And I got a lot out of it. So, and I'm in it. I'm intrigued. I'm happy that I'm finally diving into this game. I do sort of want to, I'm like really trying my best to, I also want to temper my expectations for sure, just because, I've heard how good this game is and everything. And so far it's sort of living up to that kind of, living up to those expectations for sure. But I do want to temper them because like, you never know what happens, maybe there's some things that that don't mesh as well as me as I thought it would. So I just need to, but I'm living in it. I'm enjoying it. It's fun. And I'm excited to play more. Excited to talk about it more later on. Like I did, part of me was like, maybe I want to save, time to record something later this weekend. But I just, I don't know how much more I can really say necessarily at this point. But, that might be something to think about as I continue playing through it. And I'll probably have a little bit. Well, hopefully, I don't know. I don't know. Hoping that I'll have a bit more time next week to play a bit more because I really want to get into it. But maybe this weekend I can catch up on it quite a bit. But yeah, great introduction so far. I'm excited to dive into it more. Let's talk a bit let's do a bit quick catch up on some news. News and rumors and leaks and all that shit. So it seems more likely than not that there's going to be a Direct next week, Nintendo Direct, which is pretty exciting. There's been some leaks somewhat. I don't know how reliable they are. They say the person who leaked it seems to be like a pretty reliable source. They were saying that there's going to be some Nintendo IPs that haven't been, seen super recently. Like, I think it was Donkey Kong and F-Zero that they said. And so, like, here's the thing about leaks and stuff. So I see that people are sort of, they're worried about getting spoiled on the Direct, which I get. I understand. I empathize with that feeling. I personally don't really care too much about those kinds of things. It's just sort of like, if this game is announced, then it's announced. Like, okay, cool. Even if it was announced ahead of the time of the announcement. Oh, but then it kind of like ruined the surprise, is what some people might argue. It's like, well, I care more about the game itself, being announced than the announcement itself. Even though an announcement is like pretty fun and there's some hype to it, and that can generate some buzz if it just kind of came out of nowhere. So I understand that for sure. It's just not as important to me. So, I will put. I don't know. Maybe I'll put like a spoiler warning for leaks. I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily worthwhile, but I don't know how reliable it's going to be. That shit might not even happen. So, but yeah, there's two IPs might be coming back, which would be pretty cool. I've never really been for either of those, for Donkey Kong or for F-Zero. I've never played a Donkey Kong game, and I've never played F-Zero. F-Zero was a little bit before my time, I feel. So it might be interesting to see. Might be interesting to kind of see. Again, Donkey Kong, pretty straightforward. Platformer. Again, platformers aren't really my thing, so I don't know if that's something that I will pick up. But it's cool. I think that's pretty cool. That could be potentially revealed next week. And then also some news about the Switch 2. Did I talk about this? I don't think I talked about this because this is pretty recent news. So there's been some additional leaks about how the Switch has the potential to run some pretty high level games, or, at least enhanced kind of graphics to the on par with some of the current generation. I don't know how much of that we can really take, but that's cool. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how they handle the, of course, like the specs and all of the system capabilities and whatnot. That would be really cool to see. Like, if it's able to run shit like Elden Ring, like, holy shit, that'd be huge. That would be massive. Day one? No, probably not a day one for me, but could be something to look forward to. I really, it just comes down to backwards compatibility. I know that's like that's what a lot of people are saying, but I really feel that. Because if it's not, that really kind of puts a damper on things. Like, I feel that it just doesn't, like, then it doesn't incentivize me to buy the system, sooner, right? Like if it is backwards compatible, it's like, oh, that's pretty. I'll buy it a lot, Again, I most likely won't buy it at launch, but I'd be interested in buying it, maybe soon after, because then it's like, uh, at least I can have another system that I can play with, and I can see how things go. I can use it, same as my Switch. My current Switch is pretty old. It's definitely getting there. It's feeling, starting to get kind of rusty. Really what it comes down to is my Joy-Cons are fucking ass. That's a big thing. That I think this is like a kind of a big gripe that I have with the Switch is the Joy-Cons. I'm curious if they're going to update the technology with that, because I've gone through like 3 or 4 Joy-Cons at this point, simply just for my right controller. And once again, it's really starting to, it's having issues with connectivity. I have to like constantly dock and undock it just so it can sync back up. And that's a bit of an issue for sure, because that, when I've played online games, like I actually am just sort of like locked. I'm like, fuck, I have to quickly, dock it back, undock and dock it back in just so I can regain control. And then it just fucks things up. Like when I'm playing Rocket League, that's happened a few times. And it's not great. So hopefully with the next system, they improve the quality of the controllers. I think that would be massive. That and then the backwards compatibility. Those are really the two biggest things. If it can support some of these larger games like Elden Ring and some other third party software titles, that would be great for sure. That would be awesome. But those two things, backwards compatibility with the original Switch and then Joy-Con, improving that, the controllers, that would make me, I'd be happy with that, and that'd be something to kind of look forward to. So yeah, some news that's been coming out about the Switch 2 and shit like that. Direct. Coming out next week, potentially, most likely. So I'm going to keep an eye out for that, and then I'll most likely talk about that next week. Oh yeah, unfortunately, this was kind of I was a little disappointed to hear this, but it seems like they're not going to be releasing any DLC for Tears of the Kingdom. Disappointed for sure, because I think that was one of the things I was kind of holding out for something that would make me want to go back into Tears of the Kingdom. That's something to kind of incentivize me to go back into the game and play. But yeah, it doesn't seem like the case based on, there was a Famitsu article that came out with Aonuma who said something, about DLC not being released. So yeah, it is definitely a little disappointing. Because looking back at Breath of the Wild, it had some really great DLC content with like Master Mode and the Champions Ballad. I think especially that. Like an additional kind of dungeon thing, which is pretty huge. So it is definitely a little disappointing. I wanted kind of something to go back into Tears of the Kingdom, but I understand, like, this game is already pretty complete, and it's it already has, it has so much already going on. And I did beat the game, and I did pretty much everything that I wanted to do. So I'm not like devastated, but I am definitely a little disappointed for sure, because I think I would have definitely picked up the DLC and then gone back into Hyrule to play around a bit more. But I again, I've just done everything that I've wanted to do at this point for Tears, and I just don't have in terms of like the side questing and stuff, again, maybe it's something that uh, I'll go back in to do like sort of like a quasi 100% sort of thing. But at this point, there are other games that I want to play that are currently on my list, so it's okay. It is what it is. There's a lot of other games that I want to get through. But yeah, I guess disappointing, but not the end of the world for no DLC. I was kind of thinking about the this whole concept of DLC can potentially rub people the wrong way, because like a common argument I hear is, if it was DLC, why couldn't it just be part of the main base game, right? Which I understand, because like if you think about it, if you buy just the base game, whatever it might be, just let's just say standard price $60, right? And then there's like an additional, maybe it's like an additional story content, or some some other kind of loot or other miscellaneous shit that gets added on for maybe like 25 bucks. It's like 85, right? And then you have more things that might be like minimal, maybe it's like $5 each or something like that. It could really add up to $100 or something like that, right? That shit can get expensive for sure, especially for just one game. Like those are things, there are certain games where I'm willing to spend that kind of money, like Xenoblade for sure, and Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. But yeah, it's definitely not something for every game. Like and it also depends on like if that DLC is like worth it for what you receive, right? Again, going back to Xenoblade, I think really it's the exception. The series is, with Xenoblade 2 and 3, I really feel that the DLC added for those are really just kind of the highest bar of, DLC content that you could get, because it's literally a whole additional game. I've clocked in maybe like 30-40 hours into Torna, and 30-40 hours into Future Redeemed, which is crazy. That's just those are 2 whole games, and they were like $20 maybe, right? If it was, I think based on how much the DLC cost in total, if you kind of discount like the other stuff, then yeah, it's like $20 for both of those, which is crazy shit. You know what I mean? So like those are really the highest bar in terms of like what DLC content can be, is additional side, like a whole separate storyline that gets added on to that not necessarily added on, but like separate from the main game that you can access. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty crazy. Like that's like an exceptional example of that. But with like other DLC stuff, if it's just like costumes and like you have extra money, or maybe you have receive some like accessories or some shit that might make the game a little bit easier, then it's, I don't know, is that worth the cost of purchase? However much that might cost. I don't know. It really depends. It does come down to personal preference in terms of what you are willing to pay for sure. But it's like, if it's not, and it depends per game too. Like if it's not like a story based game, like, and then the DLC, it's like, okay, you get like a costume, you get like a skin. I don't know. There's just a lot to really, I guess, think about when you are making those purchases. But it's like, I think that if you look at the examples that I presented, along with other games, like I've heard that the Witcher DLC story is excellent as well. It's like these are things that I think if you are a fan of the game, it's sort of like incentive. You really, if you want to really delve further into the world and further experience things, then it's like a no brainer. Like I'm gonna purchase this, whatever, regardless, right? Because of how much I love the game. But I think that the argument kind of going back to, you know, shouldn't this just be included with the game, with the price, with the base game price? Definitely. Like, I think there's, an argument to be had. It's like, why couldn't this just be all inclusive? Kind of like Tears of the Kingdom, right? And Tears of the Kingdom was $70. So, if the argument there is that we've already included everything that we could possibly have, without DLC, and we feel that this is sort of the price point, then I guess then that just might mean that games might get more expensive too, right? If they want to include everything as a part of the base game package, no separate purchase needed for extra content, then I guess that's sort of a strategy they can embody. Again, it really depends on what, how each company, how each sort of, I guess, publisher, I think it really comes down to the publisher, right? How they want to, sell the game, as sort of like a separate thing, or do they include it as a part of it? I don't know. There's a lot to think about there. I think that it's interesting, like how much how much additional content that you can get out of potential DLC. If there is if it is like a separate story of some sorts, like that could really be impactful, like in the case of Future Redeemed. Like that game, that DLC wrapped up the entire kind of Xenoblade trilogy. Like that was sort of the bookend of everything. You know what I mean? And that could be something that like people might miss out on, potentially, right? If it wasn't included, or because it was included separately. I don't know. Like is that maybe, is that kind of an issue? Like if this is like such a key piece to the whole thing, right? Same with Torna too. If you don't play Torna, you're missing out on additional backstory. Something they'll, maybe you don't enjoy it, but I feel that I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I feel that it added a lot more value and quality to the entire Xenoblade 2 package. But then with like Future Redeemed, it's something that wraps up the entire and just kind of like puts everything kind of together. So it's like, is that something that maybe we should just include as a part of the game? I don't know. Like you could complain about anything, right? It's like, oh, I have to pay an extra $20, but you're also paying $20 for like a really incredible experience and for nearly like a full game at that point, right? So I don't know. I think there's a whole lot of conversations that can be had about how DLC can be presented, whether it should have just been included in the base game, or if it sort of gets quote unquote okay to be included as a separate purchase item, right? I think there's a lot of arguments to be had there. I think I've just been kind of thinking about that because of this Tears of the Kingdom news that popped up about no DLC. If it's something that they should just include, if they were already thinking about it, including it as part of the game, then why don't they just do that? Because they're, really just comes down to like, okay, maybe we can make more money off of it, right? But I don't know. I don't have like a conclusive or really super convincing point to make with any of this. It's just something that I've just been thinking and speculating on. in terms of how DLC is treated and all of that, because I think there's just a lot of ways that you can approach that. Do you want to? Yeah, it's like, is this additional story content, or is this just sort of like some few cosmetic items that you can add to your characters? I don't know. It really depends. But that's sort of that kind of conversation or discussion kind of popped up in my head. Yeah, so that's that's kind of what I've been thinking about. Yeah, other than that, yeah, I've just been keeping an eye out on some Nintendo stuff. I'm sort of like in that period where I'm sort of like fixated on I'm really interested in seeing like what they do next and what additional games come out, even though these are games that I probably won't play for a while. But I'm interested in seeing just kind of the conversation surrounding it. And of course news of like the Switch 2 that may come out next year. So yeah, some exciting stuff going on in the gaming world. And I just also wanted to catch up a bit on my initial Nier playthrough. So that is that. That's going to be it for this week. This has been Save the Semantics, signing off.